Hey there, welcome to Ask Amy. Before I get into today's question, I wanted to tell you about a free class that I'm teaching next week in honor of the 5-year anniversary of the Little School of Big Change. I can't believe it, but this summer, the Little School of Big Change turned 5 years old. I've been running that course for 5 years, and so much has happened in 5 years. So many people have been through it and have been touched by the no willpower approach, including like through the school, but also through these Askamys, through my podcast, Changeable, through the books. It's incredible to look back as we have this summer, me and my team, and kind of gathering some of the stats and just seeing how much has happened in 5 years. So in celebration of our 5-year anniversary, I'm teaching a free class next week, Tuesday, which is August 2nd, I believe, about how so many people, like, what do we do in the school, and how has it happened that so many people have found freedom from unwanted habits and anxiety in this way, in this no willpower way that the Little School of Big Change is rooted in. So I'll put the link here in the description, and you can join me for that free class if you'd like. I'd love to see you there. So today's question is from Linda, and it's in reaction to a blog post that I published last week. It was here on Facebook, on Instagram, on my blog, around basically what I tend to say that life is living us. That I use the example of birds and how birds don't know which direction, they don't know which direction is south. They don't know how to build a nest. They simply do these things. They are lived and they do these things. And yet as thinking humans, somehow we seem to think that it's different for us, that life isn't living us, that because we have the ability to think about certain things in more complex ways, presumably, than birds do, that we should be knowing, like you should know how to build your nest, and you should know how you're going to end your habit, and you should know how to help your children through their issues. And when we don't consciously know that in a way that we can repeat it and talk about it, we think something's wrong. And I think that's just an totally innocent misunderstanding, that we don't know how to do things in life any more than the birds do. We just have a mind that talks about knowing and thinks that it should know, but that truly we're following hunches and we're following instincts and we're doing what occurs to us exactly like all the rest of nature. The only difference, again, is we have a very complicated mind that will talk about it ahead of time and make it sound as if we should know these things or we're supposed to know these things. But what if we aren't? So that was the blog post, the article that this question from Linda is responding to. So Linda says, I like this teaching, meaning the teaching about that we are lived and that we are not separate from nature. But what about the pushback on from people who say that they won't take responsibility for the things that happened, whether it was a good or a bad choice? For example, they could say, I didn't murder someone. That was not me. It's not my fault. And that's kind of in response, again, to saying there is no separation. It's a mind that says, well, birds do it that way, but I'm a me and I do it this way. And that is thought. You know, everything about separation and responsibility and I did it and I made it happen. I'm suggesting that it's all thought. And Linda, and rightfully so, is saying, but can't people just murder people and say, oh, well, I didn't do it. I don't have any choice in the matter. I don't have any free will. There's not even a me. So can't people use that excuse? You know, she says, can't they use this understanding as a scapegoat? I'd love to hear how you answer this. So I think, of course, people can say whatever they want, and they can use any excuse they want. And this has always been the case. So like the surface question, can't people use this as an excuse and say, well, I didn't do it, there's no me, and I have no free will, and all of that, and use this understanding as a scapegoat? 100%, absolutely. And if it's not this understanding, they can use something else as a scapegoat. Wasn't there some famous trial where the person blamed sugar or McDonald's, or I don't know? People for all of time have been able to use whatever excuse they want, make stuff up. They can make anything into a scapegoat. So that's new. That's not new. Then yes, you're right. 100%. That's fine. The real question, though, Linda, that I think you're poking at here is, or the real, I guess the real question beneath that to me, and you tell me if this is what you're thinking, Linda, but I think really what we're wondering here is, could this way of seeing life, could this understanding lead to different behaviors? Could it lead to someone who otherwise wouldn't murdering because they say, oh, well, we're all one. There's no real me. I don't have any free will. I'm just going to murder you. Whereas without this understanding, they wouldn't have done that. So can this actually influence and change behavior? Like, that's what matters, right? That's a big question. That's an excellent question. Not kind of what excuses we can use, because we always could use any excuse we want. And if that follows, Linda, kind of where you're thinking, I think it's just, would we become less moral, basically, without accountability? Would we be more likely to do hurtful things without a sense of a separate me, and without accountability, and without responsibility and free will and all of that? And it's a great question, but I think it's a complete opposite of how it might look. That as we see that there is connectedness is not the right word. We're not connected. We are one. And it is only thought that arises that says, I'm a you and you're a you, I'm a me and you're a you, and I did this and I made this happen and you did that and you made that happen. All of the layers of separation and responsibility and accountability, they're fine. They serve a purpose to a certain degree. But do they actually make us be better people? I would argue the complete opposite. That believing in separation, believing I'm a separate me, automatically makes me vulnerable. It makes me fragile, and it makes me scared. Automatically. The minute I'm separate from the whole, I'm scared, and I should be, because I'm at risk. I'm separate from the whole. I could be killed. I could be killed. You could be killed. It puts us on the defense. It instills fear. It is fear. Separation and fear are the same thing. So as we start chopping life up into you and me and accountability and free will, and you should have done this and you could have done that, as we keep chopping and we get more and more and more and more varied stuff and more varied stories that all interact with each other, that's when people get afraid. That's when insecurity, that's what breeds insecurity. That's what is insecurity. And from that place is when we do things to try to get more security, including things that are harmful to other people. Without that, when there is one, and there's no right or wrong that's written in stone, and there's no you did it, I did it, and there's no could have, no should have, no would have, there's just what is, there is no harm. There is no harm to others. There is no others, right? Harming others is harming us. It's all one. It's all one system. I mean, even down to little things, like when we feel connected with the world around us and we see it's not us and nature or us and them, it's we are nature, we're all of it, you're less likely to throw a dirty napkin on the ground. You're less likely to litter. You're less likely to do... You're more likely to hold a door open for someone, and not because you decide to do it, not because you're held accountable, not because it means something about the kind of person you are. None of that. On a far deeper level, you feel the oneness. You are the oneness. So it is just natural, so natural and beyond thought, before thought, just like birds heading off in a direction. And what do you know? It happens to be south. How did they know that? Well, they didn't know that. They just followed a hunch. That's what we do, because we're no different than nature. It's all the same. That's the way that shows up for us, is kindness and respect and connection and love. The complete opposite of what we're afraid is going to happen if we don't have separate people who are held accountable. So I hope that makes sense. It's an excellent question. And on the surface, and from a lens of separation, from a lens of I'm a me and I've been a good girl because I'm held accountable and people might get mad at me if I do bad things, it can totally look like, whoa, life is lived and I have no free will. Man, that's free reign to just do all the bad things. But it doesn't work that way. It works the complete opposite. Because when we feel secure and one and connected, there's no desire to hurt others. There are no others to hurt. It just doesn't even make sense. It's like it just skips a level. None of that makes any sense. And life just looks and feels very, very different. So consider that, Linda, and everyone listening, that it's actually the complete opposite, that accountability just really doesn't go very far. But oneness does. So thanks for sending your question. And again, I hope to see some of you on the free class next Tuesday, and I'll put the link there to register. Send your questions to askamy@thelittleschoolbigchange.com, and I'll see you back here next Monday. Have a great week.